of us have heard the name of Freud. When you speak about psychology, Freud is very commonly heard of. His research is very well known, also very controversial, right? There are some things that he spoke about which are considered really great in the field of psychology, and others are some things that are extremely controversial. His main focus was on the unconscious thought processes and childhood experiences. He believed that what we experience as children stays with us throughout our lives. It really determines how we form as a person, right? What kind of personality traits that we develop are determined by what kind of childhood experiences we've had. We saw that Wilhelm Wundt and William James, the focus was more on the conscious mind. Freud's focus was more on the unconscious mind. What are the things that go on in our mind that we are not necessarily aware of? Right? He gave a lot of theories. He spoke about the defense mechanisms, which we will be talking about in our personality chapter, how unconsciously we are acting in a certain way because of there are anxieties inside us that we are not necessarily aware of, right? Which determine how we react to a particular situation. One thing to note here is that his perspective is called psychoanalysis. Make sure you make a note of that. That's important. And one excellent example of Freudian slip, which is what goes on in your unconscious mind and how sometimes that can peek into your conscious mind and you can act in a certain way not knowing why you acted that way, is from the TV show Friends. How many of you have watched the TV show Friends? In that, when Ross says Rachel's name instead of Emily's at their wedding, so there's this character Ross who's in love with this character Rachel, but they are not together and is getting married to a completely different girl, right? He forgets the name of the person he's getting married to and says the name of the girl that he actually loves. That's something that Freud would talk about is coming from his unconscious thought processes. Let's look at that video and see how that's an example of a Freudian slip. Sorry?
Like when you're unconscious, so sleep, like what you do when you sleepwalking would be?
There are certain kinds of disorders, sleep disorders that lead to sleepwalking, but yes, what goes on in your unconscious mind sometimes comes out in the form of dreams, and then when people are actually enacting their dreams, they end up engaging in sleep terrors or sleepwalks, right? So there is some kind of an indication of the unconscious mind there, absolutely.
Family are gathered to celebrate here today the joyous union of Ross and Emily. Now, Ross, repeat after me. I, Ross,
I, Ross,
take thee, Emily,
take thee, Rachel. Emily.
Shall I go on?
He said Rachel, right? Do you think I should go up there? Yes, do go on.
I think we better start again. Ross, repeat after me. I, Ross,
I, Ross,
take thee, Emily,
take thee, Emily. Something could be anybody else.
If Ross had to go and see a psychoanalytic prospective psychologist, he would definitely get an earful about how he's still in love with Rachel. That's the unconscious mind actually peeking in. What Freud believed, two things that our unconscious mind focuses is on sexual drives and aggression. He believed that everything that we do is determined by the underlying sexual drive, the underlying need to get the sexual gratification and to relieve the aggressive drives that we have, right? That is also something that has been questioned by research, not necessarily being proven, but there is a lot of scope to actually consider those perspectives, consider those aspects, right? This is the next perspective. This is a little different from what we've been looking at up until now. This is fairly recent perspective, humanistic psychology. As the name suggests, it focuses on the human side of a person. It focuses on how we can be healthy individuals, healthy people, and how all of us have a growth potential, right? All of us have a long way to go to develop ourselves, to make ourselves a better person. Has anyone heard the Abraham Maslow's theory of self-actualization? That's very commonly taught in business classes. What he basically said was, our eventual goal is to reach self-actualization where we are a fully functioning individual. That's where we are heading towards. Anything that we do in between is just a means of reaching the top, that is self-actualization. Just make sure you note down that growth potential is the focus of humanistic psychology, and the names of the researchers Carl Rogers and Abraham Maslow. For our next few perspectives, we are going to look at a video. It's a case study of a person named Andrea Yates. Has anyone heard of the case study of Andrea Yates? She was a mother of 5 in Texas who ended up killing all 5 of her children, right? She was suffering from postpartum depression, and we will be seeing what are all the factors, what are all the perspectives in psychology that can explain why she ended up killing all 5 of her children. The video is a 7-minute video, and there is nothing about, like, it's not gruesome, but it's actually a news coverage, and there are some home videos in the news coverage. If anybody feels uncomfortable while watching the video, can leave the class. It's only a 7-minute video, you can always come back, right? When you are looking at the video, I want you to focus on these questions and take notes of what do you think are the causes for Andrea Yates' behaviors? Why do you think she ended up killing 5 of her children? Focus on any kinds of negative thoughts that they're speaking about in the video. See if there is a biological basis that they speak about, or you think there could be a biological basis. And how do you think her social environment could have been a factor? Okay? We'll then have a discussion based on these 3 questions. Are we good on the slide? Let's watch the video.
Hey, mother.
Hello.
Mother, for a good time.
This home video of Andrea Yates was taken by her husband Rusty just after she gave birth to their 5th child, Mary, last November. It was just 7 months before she would kill her baby daughter and her 4 sons.
Say cheese.
2-year-old Luke, 3-year-old Paul, 5-year-old John, and Noah, who was 7.
Everybody say goodbyes. Back to the camera.
It is hard to comprehend that this 37-year-old woman, a former nurse and high school valedictorian, who's been described by everyone who knew her as a devoted and loving mother, is the same person who is charged with capital murder. The person who has the hardest time comprehending all of this is her husband.
She's a terrific mother, love the children. They're always climbing over her lap, and she'd read books to them, and just all kinds of stuff, and she loved them. And so I knew that there's no way, there's just no way that she would ever do anything like what happened.
But she did.
Oh, no, but it's because her mind was sick, I mean, that's it.
Although there were indications that her mind was sick, Andrea Yates never gave any signs that she intended to harm her children. But after her arrest, she told authorities that on and off for the past 2 years, she'd heard voices telling her that the devil was after the kids and that she needed to save them. She said they were, quote, hopelessly damaged. And on the morning of June 20th, Andrea Yates waited to act until after her husband left their home to go to his job at NASA's Johnson Space Center in Houston, where he's a civil engineer.
Well, I got a phone call from my wife at 5 till 10, and she said, you need to come home. And she sounded really like very stern, very cold. I said, what's wrong, Andrea? And she said, you need to come home. And she hung up. And I was really getting nervous because of her tone. And I called Andrea back at the house, and she picked up the phone. And I said, Andrea, what's wrong? I said, is anyone hurt? And she said, yes. And I said, who? And she said, the kids. And I said, which one? She said, all of them. And I mean, I was just devastated.
According to what she told police, Andrea Yates had filled the family bathtub and methodically drowned her 5 children. Then she dialed 911. By all appearances, the Yates were a normal, happy family until 2 years ago. Soon after the birth of their 4th son, Luke, Andrea began showing signs of depression. Twice in 1999, she tried to kill herself. First from an overdose of sleeping pills, and then, a month later, she took a knife into her bathroom.
She had a knife held up to her neck, and it's like she's looking at her neck trying to figure out how to cut herself so that she could successfully kill herself. And I said, give me the knife. And she said, let me do this. And I said, no, give me the knife. She wouldn't do it. She just stood there like this. So I grabbed her arm and pulled it down, and I pried the knife out of her hand.
The next day, Andrea Yates was admitted to a psychiatric hospital. She was there almost 3 weeks and diagnosed with postpartum depression with psychosis. About 75% of new mothers experience some form of postpartum depression. It's commonly known as the baby blues and usually fades away in a few weeks. But Andrea Yates fits into a much more severe category that affects less than 1% of women. They may either kill themselves or their children. Andrea Yates seemed to fit that profile perfectly. There's no evidence that she abused her children, but during her hospitalization, she described being stressed trying to raise so many young kids, saying it was a big responsibility. I don't want to fail. According to hospital reports, she said she had recurrent obsessive thoughts and that most of them are over our children and how they'll turn out. She was treated with 2 antidepressants and an injection of the antipsychotic drug Haldol. Her husband, Rusty, says the response was remarkable.
Within a day, Andrea went from being completely catatonic to sitting on the couch with me in the visiting area, and we carried on just, I refer to it as the best conversation we've ever had. The thing I learned from it is that she needed the right medicine. When I saw her respond to the medicine at that time, I'm like, wow, there's hope. You know, there's hope that Andrea will return.
After returning home, Andrea Yates was soon back to the job of being a full-time mom, which she appeared to enjoy.
Bring it up the rear, Luke. Hello? All right.
She shot this home video of her children playing around the house.
This is our night ceremony here.
Andrea Yates homeschooled her oldest children, even designing their sets and costumes for a lesson on medieval history.
Okay, Sir John Yates. And he will go to his castle.
She also cooked and cleaned the house. Her doctor suggested she get some help taking care of the children and that she devote some time for herself. But Rusty says she chose not to. For more than a year after she got out of the hospital and was off all medications, by all accounts, life in the Yates family was back to normal. They decided to have another child.
There's the baby here.
Ignoring a doctor's written warning which said that doing so would surely guarantee future psychotic depression.
Well, no, we looked at that and we said, well, this was a very difficult time. But then we said, well, would we rather have not had Luke? I mean, of course, we'd rather have Luke and have gone through that. What we were told is that there was a 50% chance that she would be depressed again if we had another child, and if she she got depressed again, she would have the same symptoms that she had in 99, and that the same treatment that worked for her in 99 would work again.
Within months of Mary's birth, Andrea Yates' depression returned with a vengeance. It was a depression which her husband says led her to murder their children.
What I want you to do now is, all the notes that you took, everything that you heard in the video, work with a partner or work in groups of 3 and discuss all of these. What did you think you found to be the reasons? Did they speak about any persistent negative thoughts that she had? What kind of, do you think, did biological pieces play a role? Like, do you think genes could have played a role? Do you think certain kinds of neurochemical changes could have played a role in her acting the way that she did? And finally, her social environment. Focus on that. What do you think around her could have helped her better deal with the situation that she was in? Let's take around 5 to 7 minutes to have this discussion, and then we'll discuss as a class.
I think she was pressured to not provide for the family, but to, you know, she already had like 3 kids when she started having depression, right? So I guess that put a lot of pressure on her. She started having negative thoughts. I think it was after the 2nd or 3rd kid. So she's been depressed for like 2 years before she had like the next couple of kids. So she was already thinking that the devil was telling her to harm the kids. Yeah. Right. Yeah, she was afraid of failing as a mother. Biochemical. I think there's definitely a chemical imbalance in her brain. I don't know how to explain it better, but it's gotta be something to do with your body gotta go through such of turbulence when you have kids, especially if you have your 5th kid or 4th kid. So I don't know if it has anything to do with genes. She has like, if she had a predisposition to this kind of behavior, but less than 1%, yeah. So we don't know if she was included in that 1% or not. Most likely she was. I think her upbringing might have been religious. So if she wasn't brought up in that type of household, she wouldn't think of, if she didn't believe in the devil, she wouldn't think of a devil was telling her that to do that, you know? That's what I think. Right? Sure. Pressure on her to yeah, it could possibly be added to the pressure she already had, like 3 or 4 kids, being depressed, thinking of failing as a mother, and then failing her God for not being a good mother.
I feel like this dealt with her mind. Social environment. Yeah, we talk about how she
Right. Yeah. Yeah. No one to talk to besides her husband. That's where we got it from. He was always working. He had to provide for 5 kids.
And then outside of that, like, it seems to me that the depression really hits in such a simple way to go away.
Just get medication and she'll be done.
There's so much more that goes into that. Yeah, because I have like family members that have something that's not just medication. Getting up to having
Yeah.
All
And
right.
he
We
insisted
shared
that
together as a class.
she had like more time for herself, and she said.
What do you
she didn't have
think
to,
were
but she
there any
actually
kind of
didn't.
negative thoughts that they spoke about in the video that were persistent even when she was not really depressed? Did they speak about any kind of negative thoughts? What was your impression?
So she gives like many signs that she is capable of crime.
Right.
First, when she take overdose,
Mm-hmm.
and then after a month, when she tried to kill herself with a knife.
Right.
So I think in a time of 1 month, she just continued to have these thoughts in
Right.
her mind.
There was some kind of indication that something was
So
going on in
if
her mind.
it's capable of like kill herself,
Mhm.
maybe why not is capable to kill her child,
Right.
kill her kids. So yeah, I think he gives many signs.
Right. Good. Anybody else? Any negative thoughts that you spotted in the video that they spoke about that resulted that could have shown us how she was functioning even when she was not really having a postpartum depression, her everyday life thoughts? Anything that you heard? Yes.
Did she mention that like she was worried about how the kids would turn out?
Yes. Absolutely. They did see that she spoke to her therapist that she was worried about how her children will develop, right? That she thought that they were not developing correctly. And in that point of time she was on medications for depression, right? So those are very important thoughts to note, to understand that those were something that she persistently was having, right? Those kind of negative thoughts could have been a good indication of what she might be thinking of. And if she goes back into the depressive episode, those thoughts can be psychotic. Right? Absolutely. Very good. What about a biological basis? Yes.
Ooh, I think I was 29%. I also think she had 4 kids or 5.
5.
5?
Yeah.
I feel like the human body and we're already hormonal people, organisms, whatever.
Right.
So with all that being off balance and then a slight depression,
Mhm.
I felt like it throw it off. And we don't know anything. I'm sure there's more studies in there videos about
Right.
her genes about like who her parents were,
Right.
they had diseases. So I'm sure that plays a huge factor into it. But
Absolutely
that
does.
experience of them having no life
Right.
would make me go crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. She had a postpartum depression which is related to the hormones, right? It is very evident that because there are hormonal changes in the body, women experience postpartum depression. That is one biological basis. Plus depression, as you said, if it was in her family. It actually, when they did the research after she committed the crime, they found out that her siblings were both diagnosed with major depressive episodes and were taking medications for that. Depression is also highly genetic, right? So it's quite possible that she got the genes for that. Correct? So that can also be a biological basis. You had your hand up?
Psychosis, they all the drug cause for psychosis, but it can be linked to genetics too.
Yeah.
That can,
Absolutely. Absolutely. A psychotic episode can be related to some kind of gene. People who have anxiety disorders or people who have schizophrenia, it runs in the families usually, right? What about her social environment? What do you think about that? How do you think that impacted her? Yes, Bala.
I think she was kind of so afraid to fail because she said something about how she didn't want to fail. So the demons, like, or the devils, whatever, went in her head, just telling her all this stuff that
Right.
she had to save them.
Mm-hmm.
And kind of like her husband too wasn't paying enough attention. And like when they had child number 4, and the doctor told them 50% chance of you having a psychotic disorder, depression, if you have another child.
Mm-hmm.
And he kind of like didn't look at it because she wasn't doing anything to help herself.
Right.
And I think it was almost the husband's job too to help her out.
Absolutely.
And he kind of did the opposite of that.
Right. His role was very important in all of this, right? If she was having certain kinds of episodes, it should have been him who was responsible, who knew how to probably ask for help, which they didn't. They took a chance with the 5th child, and that's when she committed the crime, because it was told that she will have a psychotic depression, right? Think about it, she was homeschooling these children. So she was with them all the time. She did not have a social life. From what we saw, she did not have any friends. She did not go out to talk to anybody about it, right? She was all consumed by this role of a mother, right? Questions to all these three, answers to all these three questions is what are our next perspectives. The cognitive psychology perspective will focus on the negative thoughts. If you visit a cognitive psychologist, their focus will be, what are your everyday thoughts? What do you think about when you get up in the morning? How negative are these thoughts, and how can you change these negative thoughts to positive thoughts? So the first question that we looked at in case of Andrea Yates is something that a cognitive psychologist would focus on. What were her everyday thoughts? How negative were they, and how dangerous were they that could result in a psychosis, right? A neuroscientist would look at the hormonal changes, would look at how depression is genetic. Probably someone who looked at the family history of depression is someone who was from the field of neuroscience. Are we good on the slide? I'll quickly go through the next slide and come back to this so you can finish your notes, just so I finish talking about this. Behavior genetics is also a field. Depending on how you are acting, how you're behaving, the genes are traced back to if there is certain kind of presence in your family of a disorder, or if there is a gene for psychosis, or if there is a gene for depression. That is something that a behavior genetics person would focus on. How much is the environment playing a role versus how much do genes play a role? And finally, social cultural factors, the environment that you are in, how much support you have, what kind of culture you come from, if there is family to support you through, or if there isn't, you are expected to do everything individually, right? That's what a focus of social cultural perspective psychologist would be on. We have 3 minutes, so feel free to complete your notes. There are a few reminders that I am going to talk about while you take the notes. One is your syllabus quiz is due on Sunday. Make sure that you take it before Sunday. Do not wait until Sunday. Also, I have created another extra credit assignment today in the morning, which is due on Monday 8 a.m. before Monday 8 a.m. So use the weekend to do this extra credit assignment. It is just a pre-assessment survey that the department is doing for how much students who come into the psychology course already know about psychology, and then what you will learn throughout the course. So it's a 15 questions survey, and it's just a true or false thingy. You don't have to worry about if your answer is right or wrong. You will not know at the moment if your answer is right or wrong. We will do a post-assessment survey. That's when you will know the correct answers. It's an extra credit assignment, so it's scored at a 0. However, once you finish the assignment, I will know, and I will go and give you 3 extra credit points for that, right? So make sure that you finish it by Monday 8 a.m. Do not wait until Monday, right? Just use the weekend and do it. And read textbook pages that we have covered up until now. The quiz that we did today, these are the textbook pages 1 to 10. And if you do not have the textbook yet, make sure that you go through the slides. The quiz that we did today, we will do a similar quiz on Monday as well. Okay? So make sure you take the note of textbook